Good evening. Welcome to the QCIS channel. On this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. My name is Leon Jones, and what I'm going to do this evening is I'm going to do a presentation for my OLS 376 Human Resources Issues course at Purdue University. And what I'm going to talk about is training, orientation, and I'm going to get into a little bit of benefits. If you have the book, Human Resource Management, 13th edition, that's where I took my inside information from. And in my outside information, I just took it from employers that I currently work for and that I used to work for. Now, it is very important that you understand training and orientation. Now, I'm also going to sum up a case study that dealt a lot with orientation and training from Team Fun. But before I get into that, let me share my screen and let's talk a little bit about benefits, orientation, and training. And at the bottom, my name is Leon Jones. And when it comes to any organization, every organization has a human resources function. Now, that function has everything to do with your safety, your policies, even discipline, recruiting, termination, hiring. But orientation benefits, again, and training are also part of the human resource function. Your employee files are kept with human resources. You have to deal with labor unions. Now, of course, here in Indiana, it is a right to work state. Now, when it comes to orientation and training, we deal with orientation. It's basically a process of getting oriented with your new employer. And the purpose of orientation is to make new employees feel comfortable. Even if you have experience, every corporation or organization is run differently. So, what you're trying to do is make each new employee be part of the team. That's orientation. And orientation deals with culture because you're also teaching your employees the culture of your organization. Now, when we deal with training, on the other hand, that's skills. Now, training is very important, and I don't believe, in my humble opinion, that organizations really spend their time on training. Training helps individuals get promoted. Now, I will tell you a place that I had experience in, they spend a lot of time training, and that's in the US military. In fact, if you're going to go to the next rank, you have to train for that next rank. That's the same way I was in the Navy. You have to do it in the Army, the Air Force, the Coast Guard. That is the best place for training. Of course, you get your orientation in the military through boot camp. But when it comes to training, training also helps morale. It helps keep your team abreast of the new technologies that take place. It also helps your team keep abreast of the new policies that take place. Training also puts you in a position to where you learn new skills. And when you get into an organization, if you don't want to be stuck in one position, you can cross train. That means you learn different skills. You can even get into management. So overall, when it comes to training, we deal with the skills. When it comes to orientation, we deal with the culture. Now, again, when it comes to orientation, again, we're basically giving new employees a background of how our company operates. We're giving them information to sign, such as your new orientation packet. You're looking over your job requirements. You're learning about safety. All this is in your orientation. I know when I started at Hanson, we had orientation. We had it through our human resources office from Springfield, Illinois. Now, you have to have orientation because employees need to know what your company is about. Now, something you should all know if you are looking for a job, do some research on the company. And then if you get hired, you go through orientation, ask questions. I find that there are not enough individuals who ask questions. So basically, when we deal with employee orientation, it's a background about the organization and your job, your specific job. Okay, the purpose, again, let your new employees know about the culture, know how the policies work. The one thing that orientation will tell you, let your employees know about levels of retention, how productivity is increased. The big issue, and this is numero uno, as an employee to your new employer, goals and expectations. How are appraisals done? What are the benefits? And generally, on your first day, you're not going to know anything, so you're going to be a little nervous. So orientation is going to reduce some of that nervousness, and you'll be able to socialize with new employees and your new management staff. It's letting individuals know what the culture of your organization is. Now, generally, when it comes to employee orientation, what are you going to get? Well, based on the company, you may have an informal orientation or you may have a formal orientation. But basically, what you're going to do with every orientation is sign a bunch of documents. This is when you bring in your license, social security card. You're going to sign an I-9. You're going to go over the policies. And once you understand the policies, you're going to sign that document. Now, all this is going to go in your employee file, so you have to read it carefully. You're going to get handbooks. You're going to get yourself in tours. You want to see the facility where you're going to be working. You're going to be meeting people. And the people you're going to meet may not be who you're going to be working for. Now, when you meet people in other departments, based on your job, you're going to have some collaboration with other departments, especially if you're working where I work in an engineering firm. So it's very important that you get to know who you're going to work with and work for. Now, basically, on your first day, sign all your documents. Make sure you keep a copy of all of your documents as well. Number of people, they throw everything away, but that may come back to haunt you in case something happens down the line. You remember, documentation is a record. And individuals who are given an orientation, they need to explain that to you. Like I said, to me, orientation is the bread and butter. Now, I know there are companies out there that are they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you on the first day. What I choose to do is I take notes. And during that first day, you're also going to receive equipment. Now, I'm an engineer and an inspector. Now, for Hanson, what I had for my orientation, we had to take some training courses as well, which training is the next subject. We had to get oriented with cybersecurity, sexual harassment, and this is a human resource function. We had to get oriented with knowing what type of benefits the company offers. We had to understand the leave, and we had to understand the termination policy. Again, we were going over a number of issues, and that also includes safety. It's also a human resource function as well, because a lot of your slips, trips, and falls happen in the workplace as well, and human resources is responsible for that. Now, I'm just going to tell you this: when it comes to orientation program, the biggest issue I always have with orientation programs is you're overwhelmed. You're getting too much information, and you can't retain that much information in one day. And when you come back the second day, your mind is so cloudy, you don't even remember what happened the first day. And is the information that you're given pertinent? Is it vague? Is it too broad? These are questions that should be directed to human resources. What about the feedback policy? Because after an orientation, I give feedback. How can we make it better? Because without the orientation, you're going to have employees that don't know anything about the company. And when it comes to detail, it's great to have detail, but you don't want to overdo it with detail. You want to give an employee an overview of what's going on when it comes to an orientation. Now, again, orientations are done everywhere. And some of the outside sources that I've had orientations with, college, new workplaces, you're always going to get orientations. Those are the two areas that I've had to sit through. And some of them were long and boring. Some of them were short and straight to the point. The biggest issue is you have individuals that don't ask enough questions. And then now, because of COVID, you have a number of your orientations, they're done online now. I know Purdue, Fort Wayne, I went through an orientation with them. It was straight to the point. The PowerPoint was laid out perfectly. And at the end, we got to ask questions. And the questions are very important because once you ask the questions, the person that's doing the orientation should be writing answers down, because that's where the feedback comes in. Because as an employee, there's always going to be somebody new coming after you, because most companies, people come in and out these days. But when it comes to human resource function, you have to know how to deliver orientations. And not everybody can do it. And it's more than just speeches. I also like the tours again. And now some companies also offer you food for your orientation. Now, that's a motivator. I mean, what you want to do during your orientation is you want to keep all of your employees motivated, number one, to get through the day, and number two, get them to have goals of staying with your company. Because when somebody leaves your company, you get somebody new, there's money involved in training that person. So when it comes to orientation, don't give too much information, because employees are going to get overwhelmed. Make sure the information is not too broad, keep it straight to the point, and have it detailed. Have enough for the employee to remember everything. In other words, create a program and stay with that program for orientation. Again, as I mentioned before, talked about feedback. I believe in evaluating every orientation program. It's the same as this course that we're taking now for human resource issues. We're going to have to evaluate it. Strengths and weaknesses. Well, we do the same thing when it comes to orientation programs. And we evaluate it with an employee reaction. Now, some companies interview employees after the orientation is over. Now, what we did when I did orientation, we broke everything down in blocks. And after each block, yes, we had our presentations. Then we sent around a sheet. It's a bubble sheet, looks like a Scantron sheet. Everybody filled that out. Now, I'm going to tell you why that was pertinent, because that let me know who's participating and who's not. Because there are some jobs that have a high turnover, like call centers. People report the first day, and that might be their last day. But when you gave your feedback, that let me know what I could do better. And then you also have to understand the culture. We always say what makes the company is the leadership. True. But the culture, that is numero uno, because you have to be able to relate to the individuals you're working with. And every company has a different culture. And you must understand the rules of the company. Now, generally, we call that socialization, and it's basically assessing progress regarding understanding the culture. And then I call it my CBA, cost benefit analysis. What's cost benefit analysis? Well, we deal with productivity, materials. We're basically looking at a program and we're evaluating costs. Now, overall, before I get to train, let's wrap up orientation. When we do an orientation, the biggest part, this is common sense, is making sure that all of your new employees understand what's going on inside your organization. They understand the policies, they understand the culture, they understand safety, they understand information about performance evaluations, how you get promoted. They understand what they're going to be doing, what they were hired for. They're going to understand the benefits, like health benefits and dental benefits and 401k plans, sick leave, PTO, paid time off. They're going to understand the documents. You have to prove that you're that person. So what do you have to bring in? ID, your passport, your social security number, your driver's license. You're going to be signing a lot of documentation. Why? Because if you understand that documentation and you sign it, that documentation is going to be placed in your file. Remember that. So orientation is very important. Without orientation, you wouldn't understand anything as a new employee about that company. And a good orientation keeps new employees motivated. That brings me to the next topic, training. And what we do when it comes to training, every job has training. Training is very important. Again, I spent 17 years in the military. We went through boot camp. That boot camp was our training. And when we train, we're learning the skills that are needed to perform our jobs. Now, of course, every organization has a strategic plan. And that strategic plan is investing in their personnel. That's known as human capital. And when we deal with development, we're not developing somebody for the short term. Let me give you an example. Look at Major League Baseball. To be a good player, yes, you have to practice, but you have to go through a developmental process. So you might come out of high school, you go to college. You go to college, you're going to be drafted by one of the major league teams. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to go straight to the major leagues. You're going to go to the minor leagues. You might go to single A. If you're good, you get promoted to double A, and you can go to triple A and even to the rookie league. Now, what I just mentioned there were steps to the development process on getting to the major leagues from the high school level. And in order for you to rise, you have to increase your skills through competencies. You have to understand what your tasks are at the bottom, and then you're going to continually get development in order to move to the next level. And many of us, when we look at training, what goes into training? Well, I believe organizations should have training manuals. Well, the military, we did. I know working at Hanson right now, we don't have a training manual. We have individuals who are on a job. There's some jobs you're going to do OJT, which is on the job training. I train people. But remember something. If you're training somebody, you need to be an expert. I'm not saying a jack of all trades, but you need to have a lot of familiarity with what you're training the next person to do. Training is not very easy. You have to be very patient when you're training new people. And my object is, when I train somebody, I'm training somebody to take my position so I can get a better position. And training is a developmental process. Now, some people teach it differently. Some people read off of PowerPoint. I don't do any of those. I give you the information, and I let you know that training is a good investment. Now, what does training do? Training is a good strategic process in developing your employees for retention. Now, one area that I see companies suffering today is once you get your employees on board, how do you retain them? Don't promise anything that you can't keep. You want to keep your employees motivated all the time. And in the end, they're likely to stay. But you have to monitor and you have to have a good developmental process. Again, why is training needed? Training is going to increase morale, job satisfaction. It's going to lower absentee rates, and it's going to increase productivity. And when you have training and development, what you're really getting, you're getting top talent, and you're going to retain that top talent. And in the end, your productivity is going to improve, and you're going to earn more profit. I mean, being in business, if you don't make a profit, you're not going to be able to retain top talent. Also, your dedicated employees. They're the ones that are going to take training a little more seriously because they want to continue to develop through the company ranks. And also something that's decreased is absenteeism. Now, again, when it comes to training, again, it basically helps businesses or organizations retain their top talent. And included in retaining your top talent, job satisfaction is going to be increased, motivation, morale is going to be increased, the company is going to make a little bit more money, profit. And basically, in order to make that profit, you have to have improved productivity. And when it comes to the legal aspects of training, must be assessed with an eye towards an impact for the program. And what type of program? It could be a safety program. It could be a program to help you be a better marketer, be a better manager. You have to understand who those group members are. So when it comes to the legal aspects of training, it's about assessing the training program. Now, you have to have a strong training program that people believe in. And a strong training program starts with developing a training manual. Now, the way I train people is you have the book work and you have the hands-on work or the application. To me, an effective training program works when an employee can apply the book work. I mean, you have individuals who are book smart, but they don't know the application. Productivity is done via the application. And when you have employees that have confidence in what they're doing, that's also going to help morale. And that's also going to be a big, big, high with your training program. It means your training program is working. And again, training comes in all different forms. But basically, when you're training somebody to do a specific job. And you're training somebody to develop through the ranks so they can get into leadership if they desire. Now, of course, you have some people that don't want to get into leadership. But for the most part, you're developing personnel. Okay, now training process. It's got 5 different steps. You have your needs analysis. It's almost like Maslow's pyramid. Self-actualization. Well, this is basically the training process. The needs, how you're going to teach it, how you're going to design it, validation, how you're going to implement it, and then the evaluation of training. Your needs analysis, there are 2 approaches. And you have your tasks and you have your performance. And basically your tasks are what's being used to assess the training. What are the needs for new employees? And your performance. You're basically utilizing the determination or the determining needs for your current employees. So the tasks are for your new employees and your performance analysis for your current employees. If you're going to have a team, you're going to have a mix of veterans and new people in order to have an effective team. Number 13, your needs analysis. You're basically identifying competencies and skills that are specific so you can perform your job. And now, what is also useful in the training needs analysis is a job description. Many people don't pay attention to the job descriptions. Now, a job description, and of course, a specification are very, very useful in looking at what you're going to need to perform the task. And you tie everything together, you have the task analysis. Again, you're identifying competencies, skills, and what it is with the task analysis, your aim is basically to develop your new employees. That's what your task analysis is set up to do. And not only are you developing the skills of your new employees, you're also giving your new employees knowledge so they can perform better on their jobs. Like I said, training is very important because, again, we deal with performance. Now, performance, what we do with performance is, and performance can come from your performance, I call it your appraisal. You may be lacking on something. So if you're lacking, what has to happen? You're going to have to be trained or retrained so you can, number one, keep your job. Because in a right to work state, I'm going to tell you this, in a right to work state, they can let you go for anything. Like Indiana's a right to work state, not like Pennsylvania, where they believe in unions. But again, when we deal with performance, we're basically trying to correct a deficiency through training and make it clear we're basically rectifying a deficiency through training. And that's the performance analysis. our needs. When we go out to train somebody, we need to have objectives. And what is the objective? Well, it's what the trainee should be able to accomplish when the training is completed. And when we deal with training objectives, we're basically focusing on the trainer, the one who's providing the training, and the trainee. And we're utilizing the focus on the trainee and the trainer as an evaluation benchmark. And we're doing that to see if your program is working. And again, trainers are also going to get evaluated, because if you have trainees that aren't learning anything, it could be that your training program isn't working. So you want to set a benchmark, and that benchmark should be consistent. So when you have new employees come in, everything should be, now you're going to make some different changes when technology changes, but overall, when it comes to the specific job, basically, you want to get the employee to understand what their task is. And training is to give the employee the application to perform the job. Notice what I said. The training is also to give the employee the skills that they can use to maintain, number one, their focus on completing tasks, but they have to apply the skills to get the job done. Designs, well, there are different ways you can do training, PowerPoints, but basically you have to design a curriculum. Just as I was teaching a class. I were teaching a class, I would go in there and I would say, okay, here's what we're going to learn today. Here are our objectives. So what you have to do is you need to ensure that you have the right materials to support every learning objective. And you have to make sure that the effectiveness and the quality of the program is up to par as well. So the design is really about the curriculum. How are you going to teach it? I mean, are you a person that is afraid to stand up and teach somebody something? If you are, then the speaker needs some more experience in presenting the material. Again, think about this. We talk about curriculums. If you have a college curriculum, usually an undergraduate or bachelor's program takes 4 years to complete. That curriculum is laid out. What courses are specific? You think of going to college, that's also training. And something else, when I use college as an example, this is why we fill out course evaluations, because we want to ensure that the instructor is providing us with the right material. The professor is allowing us to participate and collaborate as a team. Everything is focused on team now. School is also training. And with school being part of training, you're learning how to speak, you're learning how to write, you're learning how to socialize. You're basically collaborating as a team, as if you were in the real world. Now, school is a small part of it, but that's also training. Because not everybody can go through a 4-year curriculum. Not everybody can go through a 2-year curriculum. The bottom line, we want to ensure that the training program is effective and it's a quality program. We want to make sure that the materials that you are providing meet all of the objectives. Validation. Now, when you are running something new, want to ensure that the objectives are being met. Let's talk about the performance. When you have new employees, look at their feedback. Have a pilot program. If you're not good at speaking or developing training programs, run a pilot program. Use a representative audience. Now, when you do everything, make sure you have people that are going to take it seriously, because without training, you're never going to develop. That's why I picked these two topics. We'll lead into the benefits, and I won't use the PowerPoint for the benefits, but when it comes to training, again, you want to ensure that the objectives are being met at all times. And when you get feedback, like one of my feedbacks that I'm gonna have is, I would like to see more classes, not online, but done through Zoom or pre-record all of the courses. Makes everything a little more personal. We have the technology. We don't have to come to class like we used to. Going to class is very, very important so we can collaborate. But the bottom line is ideas. Now, everybody's idea is not going to be met. However, if you want the training improved, you have to participate. And when I mean participate, utilize the feedback, because trainers need feedback as well. They're human. They have bad days and good days as well. Implementation. Now, once you have a training program and it's been validated, well, you're a trainer. Trainer's going to have to be trained. Why? Because you want the trainers to be familiar with the content and what and how they're going to present the material. You don't want anybody sleeping. You want to keep your audience involved. In fact, one of the best things when you're training to make sure your audience is getting the participation and the understanding, ask the audience questions. Make sure they're not sleeping. And if you have to, give a little quiz at the end. See if your audience was listening. Because without proper training, you're going to have a team that's not going to be able to accomplish the objectives that your company sets. And training is very important, again, for the production, because some of these companies paying individuals a lot of money, their time. You don't want lackluster employees, because then you have wasted your money and your time. And training, it costs a lot of money to train employees. In fact, labor is your biggest cost. And this is why you have to invest in the right human capital. Now, after the training is done, you want to evaluate it. And if you want to see how the training really works, see how your skills are going to work over time. Now, again, just because you go through training one time, you may have to be retrained. We all forget. And when I talk about training, I want to make sure that the right skills are acquired. You want to understand that actions can be taken before, during, and after training program, because you want to utilize what we call the transfer. I call it the transfer of training from being trained in the classroom and applying it in the field to going out there and actually performing the task. That's what I call transfer of training. Sure you comprehend what's going on. Now, again, it's also up to the individual who is being trained to take the training seriously. Evaluating the training, provide feedback. I mean, remember, training is a two-way street. But I always believe in asking questions. Make sure that the trainer knows what he or she is presenting. Because without training, again, you're going to have a lackluster team. And again, when it comes to what can be measured, I call it RLBR, reaction. Not a reaction. Were your trainees satisfied with the training? You're learning. Did your trainees learn the information? Did you test the trainees? The behavior? Was the training transferred to the job? That's what I mean, transferred from the classroom to the job. Was the training worth the cost? Again, something else I want to talk about too, benefits. It's not part of the PowerPoint. Basically, when we talk about benefits, human resource, that department is responsible for giving different types of benefits, like your health care, your long-term and short-term disability. They talk about your sick leave, your paid time off, your 401k plans. They different types of benefits, like your wellness program for health. You get an employee car, do you get bonuses? These are all examples of internal and external benefits. Now, again, my sources here, these are all legitimate sites, and find out what benefits that the state of Indiana, work for the state of Indiana, what our benefits are. That's the SPD site, the SPD. And then you can also learn what my current employer, Hanson, has. And all the information that I got was from the book. Now, the book that we used, the 13th edition from Verhulst and DiCenzo, Fundamentals of Human Resource Management. Now, overall, just gave you an overview of training, benefits, and of course, orientation. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into my next plan of action here, and let's see if I can dig it up here. And that's, as I share my screen, we actually did a team case study. And what I did for team fun, and what I came up with for the training, well, in general, I just believe that Bobby and Tony should design a training program basically to focus on skills and capabilities that are very necessary for the success of new employees. Why? Because the success is going to basically provide opportunities for coaching, feedback, and Tony and Bobby, it's going to make it possible to share the most effective practices, ideas, and resources. And for Team Fun, this will again help to guarantee that the new employees have the skills and resources necessary basically to perform their roles. And they will also be able to effectively interact with coworkers. Now, again, Tony and Bobby, they will be able to ensure that the newly hired personnel are able to make a positive contribution to the success of the firm by participating in the development of a complete training program. That's for the training part. Now, for the orientation part, it is also essential for new team members to become familiar with one another via the use of orientation activities. And some of those activities are group discussions. You break the ice with icebreaker games. You have social gatherings, team exercises. Why? Because it is essential to take measures to ensure that all the members of the team have a sense of inclusion and that everyone is given a chance to participate in each and every activity. Now, also, there should be managers and supervisors there to oversee the operations that are taking place and offer the required direction and assistance. And participation in these orientation type of events will allow teams to establish a feeling of camaraderie. You hear that word in the military, which in turn helps to increase trust, enhance communication skills, and encourage cooperation amongst team members. Again, you participate in orientation events, you're going to believe you're part of the team. Why? Because your communication skills will be enhanced, your trust is going to be increased, and you're going to have cooperation amongst each and every team member. And that concludes this presentation of training, orientation, and benefits from the course I'm taking, OLS 376. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. And moreover, if you're looking for some social and political content, you can check out my other channel called the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show channel. Now, if you can't find the QCIS channel or the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show right here on YouTube, you check both of those channels out on Twitter. Now, for this channel, the QCIS channel, since it's an educational channel, what I always do is I always post all of these videos up to my LinkedIn page. Once again, thank you for viewing this content right here. Talk about training, benefits, and orientation here on the QCIS channel. On this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Until next time, my name is Leon Jones. I wish you all have a wonderful and gracious